Hello, I'm Andy Bajorat. I'm a principal with BBJ Group. We're an environmental consulting company who works with manufacturers on due diligence, remediation, and environmental compliance matters. I'm here to talk to you today about environmental health and safety considerations for prospective purchasers. Congratulations, your company is looking to expand through an acquisition. A few things to be wary of though, there may be environmental liabilities that are coming along for the ride. So as you prepare for closing, you're going to want to make sure that you map your environmental health and safety due diligence strategy, quantify those findings from due diligence, and then address any issues that you found during due diligence in the post-closing period. What is environmental health and safety due diligence? Well, primarily it's a roadmap for allocating environmental risks and developing a roadmap for closing those issues out and completing the transaction. The due diligence phase often involves two primary steps. The first is the Phase 1 environmental site assessment. During that process, you will identify potential pollution-related liabilities, and in addition, if the Phase 1 is done correctly, it can provide you with certain legal defenses as they pertain to pre-existing contamination at the property. The second component is an EHS compliance review. During that process, you will identify whatever sort of environmental health and safety permits are required for that operation. You'll discover whether proper regulatory filings have been made, whether there are safety hazards that need to be addressed, or whether there are any regulatory fines and penalties that have not been paid. After identifying issues during due diligence, you're going to want to identify or to develop an opinion of cost. The opinion of cost is a powerful negotiating tool that allows you to prioritize issues identified as a function of how much it might cost to fix them or how long it might take. In some cases, sellers may address these issues pre-closing, but in the event that there are other issues that they choose not to address or that cannot be addressed prior to closing, funds can be set aside to address them post-closing through escrows, purchase price reductions, insurance, or other means. As a way of example, you'll find on the screen a summary of our findings related to due diligence for a portfolio of 79 manufacturing properties. Of these, potential contamination was identified at 31 of them. In addition, numerous environmental compliance plans, permits, and filings were identified as being missing. The pie chart on the left shows that predominantly the Phase 1 findings, meaning the findings that pertain to pollution or potential pollution at the properties, generally were resultant from historical operations. That's the large dark blue Pac-Man shaped wedge. On the other hand, the compliance findings were far more diverse, and they covered topics including Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, hazardous waste, OSHA, and related violations. All right, so now you've made it through the closing and your company owns the target company. Now is the time to address the issues identified during due diligence. And that would include obtaining any missing permits or plans, installing necessary safety measures, equipment, or implementing new procedures, managing or cleaning up any contamination. Keep in mind that during negotiation, funds were likely set aside through an escrow or cost or purchase price reduction to allow for addressing these issues. And by proceeding with these, remedying these issues, you create value for your company. In addition, you'll want to keep in mind that the existing operation may have had permits that are going to have to be transferred to you. In that case, agencies will have to be notified of the change in ownership. Be aware, though, that certain permits require notification prior to closing. To recap, as part of an acquisition, you will undergo environmental health and safety due diligence, which will consist of two primary pieces: the Phase 1 ESA, which identifies potential pollution sources, and a compliance review, which identifies needed permits and process improvements. Findings from the due diligence period should be quantified to develop costs to cure these issues post-closing if needed. And as such, you will want to establish funding mechanisms during your negotiations. And after closing, you're going to make sure that you transfer any necessary permits and use those funding mechanisms to fix the identified issues. Hopefully this presentation and these concepts were fairly clear, but if not, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at the information shown on the screen. Thanks for listening.